When you're thinking about hiking in Norway, the hikes that come to your mind are Preikestolen, Trolltunga or Kjerag, or for the more informed travelers, Galdhøpiggen, Beseggen or Romsdalseggen. I hiked only 2 of those, but my favorite is neither of them, but climbing peak Skjæringen at 1037 meters, the second highest of the Søstre or the Seven Sisters. This is where everything began. Without this hike, perhaps this YouTube channel wouldn't exist, because during this hike has the idea of the Transylvanian hiker blog and YouTube channel born. This is the most northern hike I have ever taken, close to the Arctic Circle, including our hikes in Iceland as well. I found the Seven Sisters by accident on Google Street View during the months of documentation before our trip in Norway. When I saw the 7 almost identical peaks next to each other, I knew I have to go there. In nice clear weather, from here you can even see the famous Lofoten Islands. The Seven Sisters can be found on the Alsten Island, which is connected to the rest of Nordland County by the 1 kilometer long and 130 meter high Helgeland Bridge, which also has a 90-degree bend. The closest important city is Mosjøen, which is considered the geographical center of Norway. I started the hike somewhat sick, which shouldn't have been a problem, because according to visitnorway.com, it's a 4-5 hour easy hike suitable for families as well. The information board at the trailhead also says 5 hours, but it's not completely clear if it's referring only to the way up or the whole hike. But actually, our most difficult hike in Norway was waiting for us, both physically, technically and mentally. At the trailhead, there is a free parking lot where you can leave the car. At the beginning of the trail, we found a small wooden door with something in Norwegian written next to it. Of course, we couldn't understand it, but using our smartphones, we translated it with Google Translate, and we found out that it only says to close the door after us. We soon found out the reason when we saw some sheep. Of course, it was to keep them inside. The weather was quite cloudy and gloomy, and we had to follow the usual red T sign, which was climbing on some steep rocks. In some places, the marking was difficult to follow, and we had to scramble using our hands as well. Based on the total time, we have expected about 2.5, at most 3 hours of climbing until getting to the peak, but the climb on the steep, never-ending rock field was just never-ending. We would see a point where we expected the climb to end, but when getting there, the next climbing portion appeared. Around us there were small creeks which were forming ponds in some places. Behind us we could see the fields of the locals, which were well kept. As we were climbing, I was taking looks behind in hope of seeing the Lofoten Islands, because at this point I already knew that we don't have enough time to reach them, because we also needed quite a few days to get back home and my vacation days were getting over. Unfortunately, even when the weather got clearer, some clouds were covering exactly the islands. Finally, after 3.5 hours of climbing, we got to the saddle where there was a crossroads in the trail. We had to climb up to the left to climb the peak Skjæringen, and to the right there were the twins, because among the Seven Sisters there are also 2 twins. Here the weather got better, the sun came out, which has also lifted our moods a little. The views were amazing. We could see a lot of peaks all around. Honestly, I have seen something like that only perhaps in the Alps at a 4 times higher altitude. The trail got even steeper and even more difficult, so we needed almost an hour to get to the peak. Finally, we were there after climbing 1,000 meters in just 4 kilometers. Of course, the views were even better from the peak, from where we could also see the Helgeland Bridge from a distance. But the most special part of the hike was still ahead. As we were descending continuously 2 hours and 45 minutes, we could see a never-ending sunset in front of us. The sky was playing in indescribable colors, and by seeing the ocean, we had the feeling that we are at the end of the world. I cannot really describe the emotions I had. It's still one of my most memorable hikes. Probably it also plays a role that it was our first summer vacation together, and finally I was in Norway, for which I have waited for so long. After 7.5 hours we got back to the car, but we had to continue our journey immediately to get to our next accommodation, a camping right under the Arctic Circle. We took a detour on a different road to see the Seven Sisters from a distance and make some pictures, but even from there I couldn't really fit all the 7 peaks in a single picture. We could feel that we are up north, not just because of the temperature, but also because it wasn't completely dark even at midnight. We have arrived in the land of no darkness. If you want to see the story of our longest hike in Norway, the 28 kilometers to Trolltunga, you can find it here, and when it will be ready, here you will find a video about the 3 mistakes we made in Norway.